Jessica, please come join me. She's not nervous at all.
Not at all.
Jessica Gribb is a friend. She's a mom. She's a wife. She's a speech pathologist. And this Friday will be our 7th year together on our 7-year anniversary.
I went in on September 28th, and they decided to schedule an induction, and so I was told that the next day I was having a baby, which was not part of the plan.
So your plans that day were to have a baby. My plans that day were to work as a cardiologist. And in the evening, I was going to meet one of my friends and colleagues, Dr. Aki Ito, who was at that time the chief of heart transplant surgery at WashU. I was going to meet him for a dinner. Jessica was found to be breech, so they scheduled a C-section. And just before noon, you had a C-section. And who was born?
And Amelia Marie was born.
At that time. But that's where things took a turn.
After the delivery, we went to the recovery room. And so I started having trouble breathing, and my heart rate was kind of all over the place. And so lots of doctors and nurses came into the room. They handed Amelia to my husband and said, "Get out, we need the space." So he stood in the hallway holding her. And things just kind of went downhill from there. I couldn't breathe. My family said that I looked very scared. I'm glad that I don't remember anything, but I knew that something was wrong, and they discovered pretty quickly that it was a heart event that I was having.
So we went from the greatest excitement in the world to have a second baby to anxiety, tragedy, despair, and worry from there. Do you mind if I walk through a few details of that day together?
Please do.
Oh.
I don't remember, so I'd love to hear it.
So Amelia was born just before noon on that day. And within the next few hours, Jessica began to rapidly decompensate. Heart rates sustained anywhere from 170 to 200 beats per minute almost immediately after delivering the baby. And didn't come down. Blood pressures were low. She started on 10 liters of oxygen, then moved to a mask and was quickly intubated thereafter, all in the framework of about 2 hours. A little bit before 4 o'clock, she had her first cardiac arrest. Full cardiac arrest, was transferred to 490 ICU at Mercy Hospital St. Louis. And there, essentially every intensive care doc and nurse in the hospital. We have 7 ICUs at Mercy Hospital St. Louis, but all hands were on deck for Miss Jessica. So I was on call for cardiology. They called the nephrologist, the cardiologist, the electrophysiologist, and we began to work on Jessica. When we put the probe on her heart, revealed her heart wasn't moving, really at all. Ejection fraction was less than 5%. So at that time, plans had to change for everyone. We called the cath lab team in for Mercy Hospital St. Louis. At that night, Dr. Tim Schloss was on call. He was in the hospital. We activated what's called our STEMI pager. Most of you all know that, but our emergent pager to do a cardiac catheterization. And those pieces went into action. That was about 5:45. At 6 o'clock that night, I called Dr. Ito and said, "Hey, I'm really sorry, I'm not going to be able to have our strategy meeting tonight, or strategy dinner. However, we need your help. I have a very sick young lady who just delivered her baby, and if she survives, we're going to need you. And can you get your team ready?" So it was a little after 6, a few minutes after 6 was the first chance that I had to meet Kevin, Patty, and Charlie. We met in the waiting room of 490 ICU, and after briefly introducing myself, went through the situation of what we found out and what was going on with Jessica. It was a tough time. Kevin asked at that time, he said, should we bring the family here? And do you remember what my answer was to him?
If anyone wants to see her alive, they need to come tonight.
So they did. The team decided to move Jessica to the cardiac cath lab. And just about 6:15, Dr. Schloss, Dr. Surma Devi from critical care, Dr. Munzer, critical care, who's one of our pulmonologists, Dr. Sadaka, all of the fellows, Dr. Bob Ferrara, they all met her in the cardiac cath lab. And unfortunately, as soon as Jessica got onto the cath table to start the procedure, she went asystole and cardiac arrest again. And the staff there, Kyle
Hoffman.
Terry Sheets, Dennis, immediately upon going into asystole, they jumped on the table and started CPR.
Their mantra apparently was, she's 30 years old, we stop at nothing. And then they just kept on saying, we're not going to lose her, we're not going to lose her.
The challenge of doing a cardiac catheterization of somebody without a heartbeat is that there's no pulses. Everything's blind. So we put catheters into arteries of the legs and go into the heart. But we do that because the heart's beating, and that's how we know where to go. And that's what allows blood flow to go through the body. So we can inject that contrast or the dye to look for blockages. So Dr. Schloss blindly gained access and put a wire into the heart without any visualization, and did so in between chest compressions that the cath team was doing. So he could see and inject contrast into Jessica's arteries, and at that time knew immediately that this was not a coronary artery problem. It was not a dissection, it wasn't a blockage, it wasn't a heart attack. Harder than that, we now had no options. We have a heart that's not moving, an artery that couldn't be fixed, a situation that we didn't know the cause for. So the entire team got an Impella left ventricular assist device. And if it's hard to put a catheter into an artery with no heartbeat, while doing an angiogram, it's harder to put a pump into a heart with no heartbeat. But they did, and they did blindly, they did emergently, all while Jessica was getting CPR. And immediately when the Impella went in, she started to stabilize. That all took place over about 30 minutes. I'm sure it seemed like days for the care team. But by 6:45, the Impella was in place, and that was our next call back to Dr. Ito at Barnes to say, we have a young lady who might need a transplant, who might not survive, but she has a chance. And he said, we're here ready for her. So he had an entire team there waiting. They had a lot of prep to do because upon taking all of the physicians from Mercy to join her through that trip, and upon arrival at Barnes, they went right to the operating room.
And so we got to Barnes, and Dr. Ito came to my family, and he said, her kidneys are failing, her liver's failing, she's too weak for a heart transplant. So sign these papers for the ECMO that I need to put in, and it's up to her and God now.
Nobody really thought Jessica was going to live. Nobody at Mercy. Nobody at Barnes. They didn't expect her to arrive, but they never gave up at Mercy. They never gave up at Barnes. Now from there, boy, that was a journey at Barnes. You remember how many days you were there?
24.
24
Which
days.
is amazing to think about. I was only there for 24 days, for how far I had to come.
A long 24 days. Jessica was on ECMO for 10 days. Every day, every morning, I would start my morning, Dr. Ito would call me and give me the update of her status. And on day 2, it was, Jeff, her heart's it's not moving. And day 3, it was her heart's not moving. And day 4, her heart's not moving.
And I remember people would say there was a date on my board that was 10 days from when they put in the ECMO, and they knew what that date meant, and they just chose not to look at that date. But it was a lot of hopelessness, I think, because no one really knew that I could come back from this.
So on day 5, the heart started to, this is not a medical term, it's what it was in the chart, quiver. There was the earliest signs that the heart was going to regain some functionality, and there was a lot of hope. Now, Jessica's heart, in addition to the ECMO, was on every medicine that we could give to make her heart contract. But day 5 started off with a little bit of a hope, and then later that day, hour by hour, the heart began getting stronger and stronger and stronger. But over the next 5 days, the heart was strong enough to come off of the machine, at which time they put a secondary pump into the heart because they weren't sure how Jessica would do. But when we stopped ECMO, the breathing tube came out shortly thereafter. And at that time, you might have been introduced to somebody.
Yes, I was able to meet baby Amelia, and it was just absolutely incredible. My friend from grade school is a photographer, and she offered to come in and to document this for us. So I'm extremely grateful for these pictures. But I just can't imagine how hard it was for my family, especially my husband. I wasn't able to walk. I wasn't able to feed myself. I wasn't able to brush my teeth. I wasn't able to do anything. And so that was my goal, that I wasn't going to have to make a stop to an inpatient rehab center. I was going to get home to my kids, however terrifying that would be, because my heart rate was still all over the place. Every time I would spike, someone would come in and give me medicine through my IV, and then it would kind of come back down. But I kept thinking, what are they going to do when I go home? Because they can't do this when I'm at home, and this happens. So honestly, I thought I was going to go home and I was going to die, because there was still something very wrong, and no one knew what that was.
So exhausted, they gave up. You go home, still thinking that you were going to die, and also still not feeling well. So Jessica was having episodes of clamminess, headaches, heart rate bouncing all over the place, blood pressure up and down. And maybe just cutting to the chase, her wonderful doctors found what?
A paraganglioma tumor right next to my adrenal gland.
And ultimately, it was a pheochromocytoma was her diagnosis. So that was a monumental diagnosis. And
I'm 2 in a million.
2 in a million.
I'm not 1 in a million, I'm 2 in a million. So close.
We think you're 1 in a million.
They definitely told me that the surgery was very risky, that kind of disturbing the tumor might make it do what it did again when Amelia was being born. So I was very nervous about that. I remember crying to the anesthesiologist, asking her, please don't let me die again. And it was almost harder to have that surgery because I was aware of what was happening. I knew what was going on. But after the tumor was removed, it was about a 10-day recovery. And then after that, it was like nothing had ever happened. I was able to hold my daughter. I was able to care for my son. I was able to, be the wife and mom that I've always wanted to be.
I think this crowd would love to hear about the next 7 years leading up to today.
Well, that's my heart baby, Amelia. She's my heart girl. She will be 7 on Friday. Her big brother is 9.
Hold on.
And then I was crazy enough to have 2 more babies after that.
Anything else that you'd like to say or close with us today?
Just that I truly would not be here without, the work of the Mercy and Barnes doctors and the teams that were so adamant that they were not going to give up on me. So thank you all for everything that you do. Your work is truly great. Thank you.
I would close by telling you all thank you. Thank you for allowing Jessica and I the time to be up here. I firmly believe, and I think many, many others do, believe the same. There was no other reason why Jessica should have lived on September 29th, 2016, except that it was God's purpose that she had more to do in this world. And so exciting to not only see Jessica's life, but the future beautiful lives that have come from this and that generations that will follow. I love you.
I love you.
Thank you.